This coin almost ended up in a parking lot puddle, but instead, it stunned the coin world when it sold for over $1 million. And here's the shocking part: it wasn't ancient gold, it wasn't buried treasure from centuries past, it was a simple quarter from the year 2000. A South Carolina state quarter, struck in Denver, carrying the tiny D mint mark, and hiding a story so unbelievable, collectors can hardly wrap their heads around it. At first glance, it looks like the same quarter you've probably tossed into a vending machine or dropped into a cup holder without a second thought. But beneath that simple design, the palmetto tree, the Carolina wren, the bold outline of South Carolina, lurks one of the greatest mysteries in modern U.S. coinage. And for a few lucky people, this coin has turned small change into $1 million miracle. Why are dealers and collectors scrambling to find them, and why have auction houses whispered about jaw-dropping prices reaching as high as $1.3 million? The answer lies in a perfect storm of timing, rarity, and one shocking mistake from the U.S. Mint. The year 2000 was historic for American coinage. The 50-state quarters program was exploding in popularity. Families lined up at banks to get rolls of freshly minted quarters from their state. South Carolina's design, released as the 8th coin in the series, was one of the most anticipated. But inside the Denver Mint, something went terribly wrong. A tiny error, barely visible to the naked eye, slipped past quality control. Some quarters were struck off-center. Others had doubled images. And a few, the rarest of all, were struck with a die intended for an entirely different coin. Imagine holding a coin in your hand, believing it's an ordinary quarter, and then realizing it carries a mismatched image, a doubled strike, or a flaw so unusual that collectors will fight tooth and nail to own it. That's exactly what happened. And when the first of these 2000 D South Carolina quarters surfaced, the coin world was stunned into silence. One man discovered his in a handful of pocket change after paying for gas. Another collector bought a roll at face value from his local bank, only to find a coin so rare it later fetched hundreds of thousands at auction. And then came the sale that made headlines, a near-perfect 2000 D South Carolina era quarter that sold for a staggering $1.3 million, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. Ordinary people, from truck drivers to school teachers, began digging through jars of quarters, desperate to find one of their own. Pawn shops were flooded with state quarters as people asked, could this be the one? Collectors whispered about shadowy private sales where these quarters changed hands for sums most people only dream of. Most people who held one of these coins never even knew it. They spent them at grocery stores, tossed them into toll booths, or left them forgotten in old coffee cans. One man nearly used his $1 million quarter to pay for a parking meter, before a sharp-eyed dealer stopped him. Experts believe it's a combination of timing, limited circulation errors, and the sheer excitement of the state quarter program at its peak. While other state quarters have valuable varieties, the 2000 D South Carolina quarter holds a place of legend. Because of both its rarity and its record-shattering price, collectors were shocked when the first auctions shattered expectations. Dealers rushed to get their hands on examples, knowing that even moderately rare errors could bring life-changing sums. Stories began circulating of ordinary Americans trading pocket change for a fortune. One coin, one mistake, one unbelievable twist of fate, transforming a simple Denver minted quarter into a seven-figure treasure. And here's the detail most people miss: the difference between a 25-cent coin and $1 million payday comes down to microscopic flaws. Some feature doubling in the lettering around the state outline. Others show misaligned strikes, creating a ghostly shadow image. The rarest of all? A South Carolina quarter mistakenly struck on the wrong planchet, a blank intended for another denomination entirely. Those are the coins that have sold for life-changing sums. But here's the twist: most collectors never notice these errors until they've already spent the coin. Dealers warn that the majority of rare quarters slip quietly into circulation, passed along unnoticed, waiting for someone with a sharp enough eye to recognize them. And that's why even today, after all these years, people still search relentlessly through their change, hoping to stumble across a South Carolina quarter hiding its secret. Every few years, another story emerges. A grandfather cleaning out his dresser drawer finds one. A young collector stumbles across one at a flea market for $1. Each discovery reignites the frenzy, reminding the world that million-dollar miracles can be hiding in the most ordinary places. Think about it, the very coin you use to buy a soda, the same coin your children might find under the couch cushion, could be worth more than your house. That's why the 2000 South Carolina quarter has become a legend, a symbol of hope for every treasure hunter who believes fortune could still be hiding in plain sight. First, check the mint mark. It must have the tiny D for Denver, right under the word Liberty. Next, study the details under magnification. Look for doubling in the inscriptions, especially around the words South Carolina. Check the edges for signs of misalignment or unusual thickness. And most importantly, be alert for quarters that look slightly off, because the rarest errors are the hardest to spot. But don't make the mistake of assuming every 2000 South Carolina quarter is valuable. Millions were minted, and only a handful contain the life-changing errors that drive their value into the millions. That's why careful inspection, knowledge, and patience are key. The next time you're handed change at the grocery store, the next time you roll coins for the bank, the next time you clean out that jar of quarters collecting dust in your closet, you might be holding history. A coin that tells a story of mistakes, miracles, and million-dollar dreams, because in the world of coin collecting, legends aren't locked away in museums. They're hiding in your pocket, waiting for you to notice. And that 2000 South Carolina quarter could be the miracle that changes your life forever. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a change jar, but when it resurfaced, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. A simple quarter, a mere 25 cents, ended up selling for a staggering fortune, some say close to $1.4 million. How can something so ordinary, so common, become a life-changing treasure hiding in plain sight? The story begins in 2008. America was rolling out its celebrated 50-state quarters program, and when the Arizona quarter was minted in Philadelphia, marked with that tiny P mint mark, no one thought twice. Millions were struck, depicting the majestic Grand Canyon and the mighty saguaro cactus, a proud symbol of the Southwest, but buried among the sea of ordinary coins. A mistake was born. A minting error so subtle, so overlooked, that most people spent it without a second glance, yet this very mistake would turn pocket change into a miracle worth millions. At first, no one noticed, but then, a coin surfaced that looked different. Collectors were stunned when they saw the design. The cactus, bold and tall, appeared doubled, blurred, as if the engraver's hand had slipped or the die had shifted, and then came the whispers. The legend of the extra cactus Arizona quarter, what seemed like a small blemish, became a fortune, because error coins, real, authentic, undeniable mint mistakes, are the holy grail for collectors, and this was no ordinary error. It was bold, dramatic, impossible to miss once you knew what to look for. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these Arizona quarters, pulled from circulation, was carefully graded. Its surfaces gleamed, untouched, nearly flawless. And when it went to auction, the room fell silent. Bidding erupted. Prices soared past expectations, and when the gavel finally struck, this 25-cent coin had sold for nearly $1.4 million. Collectors were shocked, dealers rushed to get their hands on any Arizona quarter they could find, and ordinary people, men, women, even children, began digging through their change, searching for that one miraculous coin that could transform their lives forever. But here's the twist. Most people missed it. They had it in their hands, they spent it without a thought, and it vanished back into circulation. Think about that for a moment. How many life-changing fortunes were casually dropped into vending machines, slipped into parking meters, or tossed into tip jars, never to be seen again? Most people don't know what to look for. The difference is small, but worth $1 million, and once you see it, you'll never forget it. You're holding the 2008 Arizona quarter. At first glance, it looks normal. The Grand Canyon stretches across the design, the towering saguaro cactus rises in the foreground, but then your eyes focus on the left side of that cactus, and there it is. An extra leaf, an extra branch, overlapping, crowding the word Arizona. A doubled image where none should exist. That, right there, is the $1 million mistake. Collectors call it the extra cactus error. Some say it was caused by a die clash, others claim it was a hubbing mistake. Whatever its origin, one fact remains unshakable: this error turned ordinary quarters into extraordinary treasures. But the story doesn't end there, because hidden in collections, stashed in old coffee cans, and forgotten in piggy banks across America, these coins are still waiting, and every year another discovery is made. A man in Texas found one while rolling coins for the bank, and yet it does, because the demand never dies. Dealers are still desperate, collectors are still hungry, and the value climbs higher with each passing year. But here's the real secret: not all Arizona quarters are created equal. Even among the errors, condition is king. A scratched, worn coin might fetch a few hundred, maybe a few $1,000s, but one in pristine condition, untouched, gleaming with that mirror-like shine, that's the one that sells for life-changing money. That's the one that touches the realm of $1.4 million. Here's the step-by-step truth. Take any 2008 Arizona quarter with the Philadelphia P mint mark, hold it under a bright light, tilt it slowly, let the details reveal themselves. Focus on the cactus. On the left side, do you see an extra branch, an overlapping line that shouldn't be there? Does it blur the edge of the word Arizona? If so, you might be holding a miracle. Collectors often mistake dirt or scratches for errors. Don't fall into that trap. The true error is bold. It looks like a second cactus, stamped where it doesn't belong, and once you've seen it, there's no doubt. Every day, quarters are spent without thought, but somewhere, in someone's pocket, in a forgotten coin jar, or rattling around in a desk drawer, sits the next $1 million quarter, the next Arizona error waiting to be discovered, and it could be yours. The world of coins is full of surprises. A wheat penny worth a house. A nickel worth a car. And now, a quarter worth more than most people's retirement fund. This isn't just about money. It's about possibility. It's about hope. It's about the thrill of knowing that treasures hide in plain sight, waiting for the eyes sharp enough, and the heart brave enough, to see them. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't rush. When you roll your change, take your time, because history has proven fortunes can hide in the smallest places. That 2008 Arizona quarter, with its tiny P mint mark, its mysterious extra cactus, its shocking backstory, and its unbelievable value, is out there, waiting for someone to find it, and that someone could be you. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in someone's change jar, and then sold for nearly $1 million. The year was 1972. Gas was just 36 cents a gallon. The Vietnam War was raging. And in the quiet halls of the U.S. Mint, a small but powerful mistake slipped past the eyes of engravers, inspectors, and supervisors. That mistake created a Washington quarter so rare, so mysterious, that today, it can be worth up to $1.5 million. But what made this ordinary-looking coin so extraordinary? And how many of them could still be hiding in circulation, right under our noses? Collectors whisper about the 1972 no mint mark Washington quarter like it's a ghost. A coin that shouldn't exist. A coin born out of oversight, secrecy, and chance. You see, most quarters struck in Philadelphia during that time were never given a mint mark. That alone isn't shocking. But in 1972, something unusual happened. A small batch of these no mint mark quarters carried subtle differences that set them apart forever. And when one finally surfaced at auction decades later, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. One man's loose change, something he almost used to pay for a cup of coffee, turned into a windfall beyond his imagination. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Dealers scrambled. Collectors pulled out old rolls of quarters, their hands shaking with excitement. Auction houses began getting calls from ordinary people who swore they had the 1972 no mint mark quarter. Some did. Most didn't. The difference was in the details, and this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On the surface, a 1972 quarter looks like every other one. George Washington's profile, the familiar eagle on the reverse. Common. Plain. But look closer, and you'll see it. A faint doubling in the letters. A sharpness to the date. A peculiar weakness in the strike. These quirks were the result of a misaligned die, an error so rare that only a handful are believed to exist. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. And ordinary Americans, for the first time, realized their pocket change could be a lottery ticket in disguise. But here's the twist: not every 1972 quarter without a mint mark is valuable. Most are worth only face value, 25 cents. That's the trap. The treasure is hidden in plain sight, but you need the trained eye to see it. One famous case tells the story best. A man in Ohio brought in a jar of old coins to his local dealer. Buried among nickels, pennies, and dimes was a dull, worn quarter. The dealer almost tossed it aside, until he noticed something strange about the date. His heart raced. Could it be? After weeks of verification, that coin went on to sell at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, that very variety has been appraised at nearly $1.5 million. Think about that for a second. A coin you could find in a vending machine, a coin you could get as change at the grocery store, is now more valuable than a luxury mansion. But the story doesn't end there. Every year, more discoveries surface. A collector in California found one in an old roll of quarters he'd kept since the 1970s. Another was uncovered in a widow's shoebox of coins she hadn't touched in decades. Each discovery fuels the fire. Each one raises the question: how many more are still out there? This is why collectors never stop looking. Because the next $1 million discovery could be theirs. But what makes the 1972 no mint mark quarter even more fascinating is the mystery around its origin. Some experts believe these coins were struck on experimental planchets, blanks that weren't supposed to be used. Others think the dies themselves were improperly prepared, leading to the doubled features. The truth? No one knows for sure. And that mystery makes it even more desirable. Imagine holding one in your hand. The weight feels no different. The color is the same silver gray you've seen your whole life. But in that moment, you're holding a fortune disguised as pocket change. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And it could happen again, but here's the detail you cannot ignore. When searching for the 1972 no mint mark Washington quarter, pay close attention to the date. Look for doubling on the numbers, especially the 2. Examine the lettering on Liberty and In God We Trust. Any sign of a double die could mean you've struck gold, without ever touching a gold coin. Also, watch for unusually crisp or unusually weak strikes. These signs could indicate one of the rare errors tied to this $1 million legend. Collectors often make one critical mistake: they assume all no mint mark 1972 quarters are valuable. They're not. Most are ordinary. But that handful of rare survivors, the ones born from error, accident, and luck, those are the coins worth life-changing money. Every rare coin that has shocked the world started as just another coin in circulation. Nobody expected it. Nobody imagined it. Until one day, somebody looked closer. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you check that old coin jar on the shelf, don't overlook the quarters. Among them could be a coin so rare, so valuable, it could change your life forever. This is the story of the 1972 no mint mark Washington quarter, a simple piece of change that can be worth up to $1.5 million, and this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a jar of loose change, but it sold for over $1 million. Yes, a simple quarter. Just 25 cents. But not just any quarter. This is the 2014 Everglades quarter, struck with a P mint mark from Philadelphia. And what hides within its design has sent shockwaves through the entire coin-collecting world. Someone pays for a cup of coffee with a coin they think is worthless. Hours later, a collector spots that same quarter, and realizes it could change their life forever, because this isn't just another modern quarter. It's a coin with a secret. A secret that's been hiding in plain sight since 2014. But what makes this Everglades quarter so special? Why have dealers whispered about it, auctioneers gasped at it, and collectors dreamed about stumbling upon it in their pocket change? The answer lies in a mistake. A tiny, almost invisible error, the kind of detail most people would overlook in an instant. Yet it's exactly that detail that transforms a 25-cent coin into a fortune worth up to $1.60 million. Collectors were shocked when the first example surfaced. It didn't come from a vault, or a wealthy estate, or a private collection locked away for decades. No, it appeared in everyday circulation. It was a reminder that treasure isn't buried underground. Sometimes it jingles quietly in your pocket, waiting to be noticed, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At an auction in front of a packed room of eager bidders, one of these quarters crossed the block. The bidding war was fierce. Every hand raised meant another collector was willing to bet their fortune on a tiny piece of copper and nickel. When the hammer finally dropped, the crowd gasped. A single 2014 Everglades quarter had just soared past the $1 million mark. On these rare examples, the details of the Everglades design, the iconic birds, the sawgrass, the delicate strokes of nature's portrait, contain doubling, shifts, or clashes so subtle that only trained eyes can catch them. Some coins bear double dies, where the inscriptions ripple like shadows. Others have striking mistakes that warp the perfection of the U.S. Mint's intention. Most people would toss such a coin aside, thinking it was flawed. But collectors know the truth. Flaws can be miracles in disguise. One man discovered his fortune in a handful of change he received at a gas station. Another spotted the error on a coin passed to him in a vending machine. Stories like these spread like wildfire. Dealers began scrambling to find more. Collectors rushed to study their own pocket change. Everyone wanted a chance at the $1 million miracle, but here's where the story grows even stranger. Some experts believe that only a handful of these flawed Everglades quarters exist. The Mint has remained silent, never fully admitting how many slipped through its presses. And that silence only fuels the mystery. Could more of them be out there? Could one be resting in your kitchen drawer right now, overlooked for years, but the detail that most people miss is hiding right beneath the P Mint mark. In the rarest examples, doubling stretches across the letters of E pluribus unum. The birds in the marsh appear almost ghostly, like reflections on water. And under magnification, the details blur into a pattern that should never exist on a genuine coin. These mistakes are not visible at a glance. But once you know where to look, the truth becomes undeniable. Collectors were stunned. Ordinary Americans realized that a single coin, worth just a quarter at face value, could pay off their house, erase their debts, even change the course of their lives forever. But the story doesn't end there. At another auction, a second Everglades quarter appeared. Expectations were sky high. Could lightning strike twice? Could yet another 25-cent piece defy all logic and break the $1 million barrier? The room grew quiet. Bids climbed higher and higher. Collectors clenched their fists. And when the final gavel fell, the number was breathtaking, more than $1.5 million. For a coin that might have once bought a pack of gum, this is why dealers call the 2014 P Everglades quarter the silent giant of modern coinage. It doesn't scream with age like an 1804 silver dollar. It doesn't glitter with gold like a $20 double eagle. No, its power lies in its disguise. Ordinary. Common. Forgotten. Until it isn't, the answer is in the details. First, look for the P Mint mark, the small letter just below the motto, "In God We Trust." This confirms the coin came from the Philadelphia Mint, where the known errors have surfaced. Next, study the design carefully under magnification. Pay close attention to the inscriptions, the lettering of United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. On rare examples, the doubling is faint but undeniable. Then, look at the Everglades design itself. On certain coins, the tall birds, the anhinga and the roseate spoonbill, seem almost doubled, their outlines faintly shadowed. The reeds of grass may appear thicker or distorted. These are the signs. Subtle. Fragile. But life-changing. But what happened next shocked even veteran collectors. A man who almost threw his Everglades quarter into a tip jar later discovered it was worth over $1 million. Another nearly spent his at a laundromat, until a friend stopped him. These stories prove one thing: the rarest treasures often arrive disguised as the most ordinary objects. Search your pocket change. Study your coin jars. Open that old drawer where coins have gathered dust for years. Because the 2014 P Everglades quarter worth up to $1.6 million may not be in a museum, or a bank vault, or a millionaire's private collection. It could be waiting for you. Dealers are still hunting. Collectors are still dreaming. And the world is still stunned that a coin so young, so modern, could already command such unbelievable value. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a jar of spare change, but today, it's worth up to $1.7 million. And the shocking part? You could still find one hiding in plain sight. I'm talking about the 2000 P Mint Mark Maryland quarter dollar, a coin most people spend without a second thought, but a rare few collectors have discovered to be worth a fortune. Now, think about this. The year 2000, America was bracing for a new millennium. State quarters were everywhere, flooding into circulation, each one celebrating a piece of history. Maryland's quarter featured the old line state's pride, the Maryland State House dome surrounded by white oak clusters. To most, it was just another coin in their pocket. But hidden inside a small number of these quarters, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, are flaws so rare, they've turned ordinary change into million-dollar miracles. Collectors were stunned when the first report surfaced. A Maryland quarter with a misstrike, another with doubling on the letters, and one so perfectly flawed, it sold for more money than anyone could believe. Imagine holding what looks like a regular quarter, and realizing it could change your life forever. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, the Philadelphia Mint was running full steam in 2000, churning out hundreds of millions of quarters. Errors were supposed to be caught, melted, destroyed. But just a handful escaped. Some show dramatic off-center strikes where the Maryland dome is cut in half. Others have bold doubling on Maryland or E pluribus unum. And then there's the Holy Grail, the 2000 P Maryland quarter struck on the wrong planchet. Instead of being on a quarter blank, it landed on a golden Sacagawea dollar planchet. The result? A coin unlike any other, gold in color, quarter in design, priceless in value. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these. Auction houses whisper about private sales reaching into the millions. And one coin, certified in pristine condition, shocked the community when it approached $1.7 million at a high-stakes auction. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. They're nearly invisible unless you know exactly what to look for. Collectors describe the thrill of flipping through rolls of quarters, heart pounding, eyes straining over every letter and detail. And then, that electric jolt, when something looks just a little off. The spacing, the color, the shine. It's like striking gold in the most unexpected place. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He had no idea that the quarter sitting in his truck's cup holder was struck on the wrong planchet. When he took it to a coin dealer, jaws dropped. The dealer called in experts. Within days, it was authenticated, slabbed, and sent to auction. Bidders from around the globe fought for it. The final hammer price? Enough to buy a dream home, all from a single quarter he almost spent at a gas station. But the story doesn't end there. There are also double-die varieties of the 2000 P Maryland quarter. Look closely at E pluribus unum, or even the windows of the Maryland State House dome. In some coins, the letters appear to vibrate, doubled with ghostly shadows. These double-die errors are some of the most dramatic and valuable finds. Depending on condition, they can fetch tens of thousands, or, in pristine states, hundreds of thousands. And when the right buyer steps forward, the bidding war pushes value sky high. Collectors were shocked when one of these double-die Maryland quarters, pulled from a circulation roll, sold for hundreds of thousands at auction. And that's why everyone is talking about them, because you don't need to be a millionaire to find one. You just need a sharp eye, patience, and a little luck. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. A very rare number of 2000 P Maryland quarters were struck off-center, with part of the design missing. In some, the edge of the coin is blank silver, the design shifted and incomplete. These misstrikes are dramatic to the eye, and their value climbs into the thousands. But combine that error with an uncirculated condition, and suddenly you're looking at a coin that can rival the million-dollar giants. Dealers whisper that somewhere out there, in a drawer, a jar, a forgotten roll, sits another 2000p Maryland quarter that could blow the roof off auction records. Could it be in your home right now? But what makes this story so powerful is the reminder of how fragile and unpredictable minting can be. A tiny slip at the press, a blank planchet swapped in, a misaligned die, and suddenly, a common quarter transforms into a piece of history. And those accidents, those mistakes, are now worth more than some of the rarest treasures ever found. Collectors call it the thrill of the hunt. Dealers call it the chase. And for the everyday person, it could be the once-in-a-lifetime discovery that turns pocket change into a fortune. But let's get down to what matters most: how to identify this exact coin. First, look at the mint mark. Only the Philadelphia 2000 Maryland quarters, the ones with a P, carry these legendary errors. Next, inspect the details. Check Maryland for signs of doubling. Look at the letters in E pluribus unum. Study the windows and curves of the State House dome. Any doubling, distortion, or ghosting could signal a valuable double die. That could mean your quarter was struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, the rarest and most valuable error of them all. If you see an off-center strike, with blank areas and missing design, that's another jackpot clue. And don't forget condition: the shinier and cleaner, the higher the value. Don't confuse machine doubling, flat, shelf-like distortions, with true double dies. Don't assume every off-color coin is an error. Sometimes it's just staining or environmental damage. And don't spend your finds until you've had them checked by a professional. The 2000p Maryland quarter dollar that looks ordinary could be extraordinary. It could be the coin that rewrites your life, your finances, your future. And as collectors know, these discoveries aren't myths. They're real, documented, and still waiting to be found. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This quarter almost ended up in the trash, but when it resurfaced, it sent shockwaves through the coin collecting world. A simple 1983 Washington quarter. A coin billions of people have held, tossed into vending machines, or left forgotten in dusty change jars, but one tiny mistake, one almost invisible flaw, turned this ordinary quarter into a life-changing discovery worth up to $1.8 million. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers whispered about it in hushed tones. And the entire U.S. Mint was left stunned, because this wasn't supposed to happen. Not in 1983. Not with the quarter, but here's the mystery: for most people, a 1983 quarter is worthless beyond its 25-cent face value. It's modern, it's common, it's forgettable, but in certain rare cases, a hidden minting error turned these coins into some of the most valuable treasures ever found in circulation, and one man's pocket change proved it. He almost spent the coin without a second thought, until something strange caught his eye. The surface shimmered differently. The lettering seemed off. And then he realized, this wasn't a normal quarter at all. What he held in his hand was a minting mistake so rare, so breathtaking, that when it finally reached auction, it sold for over $1 million. But here's the twist: the 1983 Philadelphia minted Washington quarter hides multiple secrets. And some of them are still waiting to be discovered. Dealers know this year is special. It was the early 1980s, and the U.S. Mint was struggling with quality control. The economy was shifting, the coin presses were working overtime, and mistakes were slipping through. Planchets weren't always the right metal. Dies cracked under pressure. And lettering sometimes vanished or doubled before anyone could notice. That's why 1983 quarters are unlike almost any other modern coin. Some were struck on experimental planchets. Some show dramatic doubling on the word liberty or "In God We Trust." Others even reveal off-center strikes that make them instantly recognizable. They're obsessed, because if you're lucky enough to find the right 1983p quarter, you could be holding the kind of coin that changes your life forever. But let me take you back to the day one of these miracle coins surfaced. A man in Pennsylvania bought a cup of coffee with a handful of change. He slid a quarter across the counter, but the cashier refused it. "Something's wrong with this coin," she said. He shrugged, pocketed it again, and thought nothing of it. Weeks later, at a coin show, he casually showed it to a dealer. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The dealer froze. His hands trembled. He had seen thousands of quarters in his career, but this one? This was different. It was a 1983 P Washington quarter struck on a copper planchet that should never have been used. The mint had mistakenly pressed it on penny stock. Overnight, that 25-cent piece transformed into a fortune. At auction, the bidding was fierce. Collectors shouted, dealers battled, and prices soared. When the gavel fell, the final number was breathtaking, over $1 million for a single coin, and that was just the beginning, because more discoveries followed. Another collector uncovered a quarter with dramatic doubling on the date. Another found one struck 20% off-center. Each time, the coin sold for tens of thousands. And in rare, perfect condition examples, hundreds of thousands. But the rarest? The one that changed everything, that's the 1983 Philadelphia Mint error worth up to $1.8 million, and here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: most of these coins are still out there. Unfound. Sitting in jars, drawers, or coin rolls waiting for someone to notice. That's why dealers rush to grab every 1983 quarter they see. That's why collectors inspect each one with magnifying glasses. And that's why one small detail could make you richer than you ever dreamed possible. First, the mint mark. A true $1 million 1983 quarter must bear the P from the Philadelphia Mint. Second, the error. Look closely at the surface. Is the metal color off? Does the coin appear copper instead of clad? That's a red flag. You might have a wrong planchet error. Third, doubling. Inspect the letters: Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, and the date. Strong, clear doubling skyrockets the value. Fourth, condition. The higher the grade, the more astonishing the price. A flawless, uncirculated example can mean the difference between $1,000 and $1 million, but here's where most people get it wrong: they think every 1983 quarter is valuable. It's not. Only the rare error coins are. If yours looks ordinary, it probably is. But if something about it feels off, that's when you need to look closer. Collectors were shocked when the first one surfaced. They were stunned when another appeared. And today, the hunt continues, because one single detail can transform 25 cents into $1.8 million. So next time you pick up a handful of change, don't just glance at your quarters. Study them. Inspect them. Treasure them, because history has proven that the right 1983 P quarter could turn pocket change into a miracle. And remember this: the man who found his $1 million coin almost spent it on coffee. He had no idea what he was holding until he looked closer. That means the next one could be in your pocket right now, the next one could be in your desk drawer, the next one could be waiting in the change you get at the grocery store. This is not just a quarter. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. It's the dream every collector lives for. And it's the reason the 1983 P Washington quarter is one of the most legendary coins in American history, because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.